Hi, good day everyone. I'm Kimberly Ashley, the environmental analyst at KMTL. Today we'll be looking at the environmental monitoring procedure for the JIEIC warehouse. So the purpose we're conducting this training session is to provide guidance and training on the safe handling and packing of containers by the JIEIC warehouse. So when you're unpacking a container before or while you're preparing to open the door of the container, if there are suspected damages or if you observe any leaks on the container, you would report this to your supervisor, and then they would contact the environment unit and we would contact the relevant personnel to receive the safety data sheet. If you observe that the container is emitting high temperatures or elevated temperatures, you also need to contact the environment and safety team. You would also make observations of any labels or stickers on the container so that you can be made aware of any risks that might be present during the unpacking process. So for containers that would have been fumigated, and when you're fumigating a container, they use different fumigants that are toxic substances. These toxic substances, they can be absorbed into the material and the cargo of the container. Signs that a container has been fumigated is that you will see the stickers outside the container, which we'll look at later. In addition to that, you'll see tapes that might be on the door of the container, gaskets, or the vents of the container. So as I was mentioning before, these are the different signs or stickers that you'll see on the containers. This one is specific for fumigation. So if you observe this sticker or label, you know that the container would have been fumigated. From time to time, containers have been fumigated in the past and these stickers have fallen off. So it is important to note if you see tapes on the gaskets, you can also just relay that information to your supervisor to confirm that the container was not recently fumigated. You'll also see the pressure tank label. These containers, however, are not predominantly are known to be in the JIEIC warehouse. You can also see the carbon dioxide or coolant label, and then you will see the MGG stickers. So for opening doors of the container, before you open the doors of the container, you have to allow for the container to ventilate. The domestic worker, you shall ensure that the container goes through a ventilation process of 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes before you enter the container. If you observe that the container has been ventilated for 5 minutes but you're still experiencing odors or any fumes, toxic fumes coming from the container, then you might need to give the container an additional 15 minutes before you enter the container. That will be the natural ventilation process. For the forced ventilation process, we make use of different powerful fans to direct air into the container to allow for the proper ventilation of the container to occur. So when you have the forced ventilation occurring, you do not enter the container during ventilation process. As was mentioned before, you have different toxic substances that are used. And if these toxic substances are used for fumigation purposes, a minimum of 20 meters all around the container zone, you shall not exceed that. For all the residue that comes out of containers, whether these residues are supposed to be hazardous or non-hazardous, all these substances shall be placed in a relevant skip and they shall be transported to the centralized waste management facility that is across from the engineering area. So for unpacking of containers, the general worker shall ensure that you make note of the identification number, the 4-letter 7-digit number for the container that is unique for each container. Then you shall make note if you have observed any leaks or any damages on the container, you report that to the relevant personnel, which is possibly a supervisor. The damages will be documented and further passed on to the broker, and any leaks that is observed coming from a container, that will be passed on to the environment unit. So how do we go about an environment unit measuring for gases? So the important thing to note is if you observe fumes, so it might not just be leaks, if you observe fumes coming from a container, you report that to your supervisor. The supervisor would then report it, or the designate would report it to us, the environment unit. We would come in using this gas monitor that is on the screen, the multi-ray, would come in and check and will provide additional guidance to the team. KFTL work or general worker, you are not responsible for conducting exterior or interior inspections of the container. So if there are damages observed or the container is defective, the shipping line will coordinate with the importer to arrange for a replacement of the unit. Before repacking of the container, the general worker shall consider how the unit is or the interior of the container is supposed to be presented to allow for the distribution of the weight in the container. If there are any anomalies, you report that to your supervisor. So this, for reference, is just to show the placards that might be on the MDG container. These are additional labels that you might observe on the cargo or on the container, the exterior of the container. So before repacking of dangerous goods, the main information related to the cargo that should be provided to the KFTL team, and any placards, marks, or signs that are to be affixed to the container that will be provided by the shipper as well. So the important thing to note is that caution should be taken by the KFTL team when repacking dangerous containers. So all smoking is prohibited in the vicinity of the dangerous cargo. Packages shall be inspected by the general worker. So if you have a leaking cargo, you cannot put it back into the container. You will report that to your supervisor. And any additional guidance that is required in relation to handling of the dangerous goods, you can seek additional information from your supervisor, or they can contact the environmental team and will get in touch. So for leaks or damaged containers, whether it is MDG or non-MDG containers, you would directly evacuate the area, especially in this MDG container. You immediately evacuate the area, and you would relay this information to your supervisor, who would, as I mentioned before, would pass it on to the environment team. We would do an inspection and have that container repositioned to the leaking container area, which is currently located at MDC. So that is it for this presentation. If you have any additional questions, you can communicate that to me via the WhatsApp number 876-453-4227. That is it. Thank you.